when we talk about your concerts, I've noticed that your programs include not only classical repertoire, but also contemporary works, and you have continued to explore that path. And I know you have recorded music by Roberto Piana, but I'm not very familiar with him, so I would love to hear more. How did you meet? How did your first collaboration begin? And how would you describe his musical language?
Well, this answer needs to be a little bit more complex and back up a little bit, because I think it was through, well, I discovered that I had a passion for finding repertoire that is either forgotten or was never really famous. But it's not just contemporary repertoire, it's also old music that people don't know about. For instance, in 2002, I signed a contract with a label in the United States. The label name is Centaur Records. And they asked me, okay, so what do you want to record? And I surprised them because I came back to them and said, I want to record the piano sonatas of Josef Rheinberger. So Josef Rheinberger was born in 1839, died in 1901. So he was roughly a contemporary of Brahms. And also from the Germanic world, he was born in Liechtenstein. And I went into a library and started exploring all the scores that I could find until I stumbled onto these piano sonatas. And I read through and I loved them and I wanted to record them. So that's what I did. And since then, my next project was the complete recordings of Edvard Grieg in 12 CDs. Most of the music of Grieg is not known. People know the piano concerto, maybe they know the suite Holberg, maybe they know the piano sonata and some of the lyric pieces, but there is hours of music that he wrote that no one has ever heard. And it's beautiful. And so I recorded all of it, including the cello sonata and the 3 violin sonatas, etc. I also recorded all the sonatas of Hummel. Johann Nepomuk Hummel is a composer that was really at the crossroads of between two eras, the classical and the romantic. And he was influenced by Haydn and Beethoven and Mozart. He studied with Mozart, but also by Clementi and Dussek. So he was basically a concentration of the two different schools, roughly two major different schools, at the very beginning of the piano, the days of the piano. Because piano wasn't, it didn't become the king of instruments right away. It took about 60 years or so, 70 years. And then you had the Mozart way, and then you had the Clementi way. Clementi was more physical, more double mechanism and stronger sound. And Mozart was more refined and more agility-based and so on. This is very generic. I mean, this could be the subject of a very long lecture. But anyway, Hummel was influenced by both. And then by contemporary, Beethoven, and then by Haydn as well. But he also influenced the young Chopin. He influenced Liszt. Liszt wanted to study with Hummel, but Hummel was too expensive. So Liszt's father took him to Czerny instead. So
wow.
Just to tell you, yeah. There are so many. So Hummel was a very wonderful composer. And he wrote 9 sonatas. I recorded all 9. Now, some of them, 3 or 4 of them, are among the most difficult works for the piano. Because Hummel was really focusing on exploring the possibilities of pushing technical and mechanical limits. So it's very interesting, but it's also beautiful music. And so my interest has always been finding these repertoire that people don't play and incorporating them into my recitals together with more standard repertoire. And so I have played the Rheinberger sonatas, the Hummel sonatas, Czerny variations, many other things in public that people usually don't play. And also Italian lesser-known romantic composers such as Martucci, for example, Giuseppe Martucci, a composer born, I think, 1860, died 1909, things like that. Then I also like the idea of having a few contemporary composers to exchange ideas and to have the ability to consult, to understand their music when you play it. It's wonderful. The first time I realized this was when I played music by Lowell Lieberman. And I didn't know this music was by Lowell Lieberman. Well, I should say, no. The first time it was in 1998 when I played a piece by a French composer named Serge Nigg, N-I-G-G. He was born in 1921-22 and died in 2002. But in 1998, I was required to play one of his pieces. And this piece was written for the Marguerite Long competition. And it was a difficult piece. It was 12 minutes long and very contemporary, but not serial, not dodecaphonic, but totally atonal, but so well written and so beautiful, I mean, to my ears, and built on a thematic cell of 3 notes, developed, very tightly. And there were moments where it was absolutely the beautiful atmosphere and moments where it was very harsh and very powerful. It was called Tumult, which means tumultuous, So the title already suggests this struggle. And so I learned this piece and I played it, and I found then that I had really a connection to contemporary music in this sense, that I liked to discover things that had never been played before. And I won the special prize for the best performance of this piece in the competition. And the composer was there. And so then we talked on the phone quite often, and it was wonderful because I also, I was learning one of his sonatas and I wanted to learn one of his concertos. So I would call him, and he graciously enough, until he passed away, unfortunately, he was already an old man. And then the same thing happened to me at the Clyburn, because at the Clyburn, we also were required to play a contemporary piece, but they sent us 5, I believe it was 5 scores, and we needed to choose one. But we weren't told who wrote the music. No name, just the music. So I chose the Lowell Lieberman 3 impromptus. But I never heard of his name before because I was living in Italy and people didn't know him at the time. This is 2001. Now they know him. But so I played that piece at the Clyburn and I won the special prize for it. And then I met him and we talked and we still communicate, and it's wonderful. I had a student of mine learn his second piano concerto, and he graciously agreed to meet with the student. So the student traveled to New York, they met, she played for him, and he gave her some pointers. It was wonderful. So now come to Roberto Piana. And also I would add the name Luca Moscardi. These 2 Italian composers, Luca Moscardi, I played some of his music and I really love it. And Roberto Piana, maybe I have a much closer connection, but just in the sense that he has written a lot more music for me, and we've collaborated on so many different projects. I don't even know if I remember all of the projects that we did together, but I'll try because it's very interesting. So I met him by complete chance, randomly. I met him in 2012 online because I was listening to some music on YouTube, and suddenly, you know how automatically it changes, randomly selects the next video. I was doing some work on the computer and listening, and suddenly I hear this music that sounds very Spanish, but beautiful music, but I don't know what it is. And of course, I don't know every single piece by Spanish composers. There's so much music. So I wanted to know. And I look and it's like, I see this name, Roberto Piana. He was both the composer and the pianist in that video. Just audio, I couldn't see him. But anyway, I was fascinated. And the title of the piece was Homage or Tribute to Joaquin Turina. So Turina is a very important Spanish composer. But this music was written so beautifully that then I tried to find this contact. I contacted him. Normally, tons of composers send me scores because they want me to play their music. And unfortunately, most of the time, I really don't like it. So I don't play it. But this time I was the one contacting him because I wanted to know more about him. What else have you written? Because I couldn't find much. And so we started corresponding. And the first opportunity to work together presented itself soon. Because in talking, we found out that we shared the same taste in music for a certain type of musicianship. We also, even though I like a broad variety of styles and genres, but I have a close preference for French music, and so does he. So we talked a lot about this. And then the perfect opportunity came for us to work together. I was asked to perform a recital at the Liszt Festival in San Francisco. And at the time, I thought of a program that was in the first half, or let's say balancing pieces inspired or dedicated to Liszt, and then pieces by Liszt himself. So I played the 12 Etudes Opus 10 of Chopin because they are dedicated to Liszt. And then I played the last transcendental etude of Lyapunov because Lyapunov composed the entire set of 12 etudes as a tribute to Liszt. And you know, he also wrote them in the other 12 keys. So between the 12 Liszt etudes and the 12 Lyapunov etudes, they cover all the keys. So there's 24 in total. The last etude of Lyapunov is also a great standalone piece. It lasts 12 minutes, and it's called Elegy in Memory of Franz Liszt. It's a beautiful piece. So this, and then I played Sposalizio by Liszt, and I played the second Liszt ballade, and I played Hernani, paraphrase by Liszt on Verdi. But I wanted to play something new, something that was specifically composed for this program. And so I asked Roberto, how about you write a piece that is inspired by Liszt? But I didn't tell him anything else, so he could approach it any way he wanted. And so he wrote a piece that is humorous, respectful of Liszt, serious, but humorous, for fun. And it's called After a Reading of Liszt. And, you know, it's like après une lecture de Dante, après une lecture de Liszt. So he basically made a play on words by devising a title similar to the Dante Sonata, but changing the last word from Dante to Liszt himself. And then he created a theme for this piece. The theme is original. And then he basically uses this theme as a leitmotif and continues to present it in various forms. And then it's almost like a small version of Pictures at an Exhibition by Mussorgsky, because this theme is like the promenade, and you walk around and then you hear a Liszt theme, but disguised or transformed. Then you walk around and then you listen to another Liszt theme. And there is quotes from the sonata, from the first concerto, from Consolations, but also from some very unknown Liszt works. And then he put it all together so brilliantly. And it's about 10 minutes, 11 minutes. So I loved it, and I performed it on this program. I even recorded this entire program on a CD. It was a live performance that I did in South Africa, and it was recorded on a South African label called Two Piano. And so then, this was 2012, I think, still. Now, at the end of the year, 2012, again, I was working on my emails and listening to music, and I listened to a song by Edith Piaf, you know, the French, basically cabaret artist. And I remember liking or even loving her songs when I was much younger because my mother used to listen to them. And so my brain started going on its own. I was doing my emails, but I think some tangent in my brain started working. And I came up with this crazy idea, which I love. I still to this day think it was one of my best ideas, honestly. Well, this is approximately December 2012. And in 2013, I realized that it would be 50 years since the death of Edith Piaf. Then I thought, wait a moment, this is also 50 years since the death of Poulenc, Francis Poulenc. And so then I remember Poulenc wrote a piece called Improvisation Number 15. You know, he wrote 15 improvisations for piano. The last one, very famous one, has a subtitle. It's called Hommage à Edith Piaf. So then I wanted to know, did Poulenc and Piaf know each other? did they meet? Because they were both in Paris, and Poulenc wrote this music. So I couldn't find any information about that. I don't think they ever met, but I know that Poulenc attended some concerts, some performances, I should say, of Edith Piaf in Paris. And they also had a common friend, the theater writer, the playwright, Jean Cocteau. So these three famous people. Anyway, so my idea became clear in a few moments. I wanted to have a CD where I could make Poulenc and Piaf meet. And so I transcribed I played 16 Poulenc songs, but one of them doesn't need any transcription because it's this homage à Edith Piaf, which is original for piano solo. The other ones are all songs for voice and piano. I transcribed them for piano solo. So then I asked Roberto, because I realized for the Edith Piaf songs that this cannot be successful with me. It needs a real composer to rewrite this music for the piano and make it individual, standalone piano pieces, not just a mere transcription, because there wasn't enough material to just transcribe. You had to flesh it out. So Roberto responded enthusiastically about the project. And very short time, he gave me 10 beautiful piano pieces created from the Edith Piaf songs, which I find absolutely gorgeous and genius arrangements. And so I recorded the entire thing. Steinway, they started a recording label in 2010. So this was early 2013. I recorded them with them. And the title of the CD is The Rascal and the Sparrow, Poulenc meets Piaf. Because one famous critic once said about Poulenc that he was half rascal and half monk, because he was in certain moments very religious and spiritual, and in certain moments a total rascal, So the rascal is obviously Poulenc. The sparrow, this beautiful little bird that sings so beautifully, this is Edith Piaf, because the name Piaf was not her real name. Piaf is her stage name, which translated means exactly the sparrow. It was one of her agents that gave her that name because she could sing so beautifully. So that's the title of the album. I would say these are probably some of the most difficult physically music I've ever had to play. Because he didn't try that on purpose. It just came up like that. And it's great music because the originals are great, but he wrote it very beautifully for the piano, and I recorded that too.